This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. At this time, I call this meeting of the Council on Aging Board to order. And I would ask that for those, I think there's Stan and Louise who are remote. If you guys could keep your microphones muted until you speak, I think that might help with the technical stuff. Okay, Louise, are you prepared to do the minutes?
Yes, she is.
Where is Louise?
You need to unmute her.
She's muted. Yeah.
She's muted. You need to.
She'll be back. She said, hold on.
So,
There she is. There it is.
okay. You think I remember? Yeah. Yes, I'm prepared to do these minutes. Hoping, yeah.
Ready to go? Okay. The minutes from the last meeting, Louise has sent them out. Has everyone had a chance to look them over? Is any editorial changes that we need to make on these, or anybody pick up on something that?
Louise did. Go ahead.
All right, speak, Louise.
Okay. Some of you already know. Sorry, can I just put in now that I don't think we've done the roll call, and that's difficult for me.
Oh, we need
to keep minutes.
Oh, the members. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can finish with the minutes first, because I asked for some guidance as someone everyone knows who sent an alternate version of mine, and there's a reason I ask for individual comments, and it's not so much to do with the open meeting and the everybody coordinating or not, everybody communicating or not. It's because if I get something that's slightly changed, I've got to try to compare the two versions, and it drove me crazy. I mean, admittedly, I was doing it against a meeting which had been recorded, only the audio and no visual, so kind of ended up like a comedy of errors. There are a couple of things, let me finish. There are a couple of things in the minutes where I had put question marks because I couldn't see and had no clue who was, so they obviously need to be fixed. I would like, maybe we can discuss or find a way forward. That's one thing, but the other is that I withdraw the minutes that I sent around because they've got question marks in them. And whatever we decide, I'll redo them after this meeting, or fix them rather than going crazy. Which is what I was doing. And I slightly panicked.
Chair recognizes Cindy.
My apologies, Louise. Usually when I try to supplement the minutes with like either a simple correction, like this is that person's last name, or a more complex one, like this is what I think I said at least. I do it in Google Docs where I can put on the edit feature so that you can see, and as a suggested change, not as, but I think what I did this time was I opened it up on a different computer, so I overwrote on my version. I downloaded your minutes, so I didn't change what you had, but I opened up a different version of the minutes, made edits to that, and that makes it a lot harder to incorporate the edits than doing it as suggestions. So from now on, if you want my help to clarify the minutes, I'll make sure I do it as suggested changes. If that helps, or just bring the suggested changes to the meeting, if that's preferable.
I think either would work. Other people might have responses. I would prefer to see suggested changes totally separately as a list because it's very easy to figure out, well, I don't think that was said there, even though it's perfectly true. And that's where I think there's been a bit of a different, and what do we do about this information, but it doesn't go in the minutes sort of thing. Because this meeting, so thank you very much. They were not suggested edits. I kind of expected that, and I went to Drive and, tried. So, and you discovered that. So that's about it. But other people might have input about the distinction between the very useful information from the executive director, from the director, and what was actually said as a meeting, which was my other question.
Okay, how do you want to proceed from here?
We can leave that on the table, and I can just say I withdraw those because I was hoping people would tell me, who the question marks were, and I'll submit them next month, or other people might want to weigh in. I don't know.
John?
I think the difficulty here is the difference between in-person and remote, and sometimes some things get lost in the translation. So I think clarifications to that effect are okay, like who said what. But in my experience with municipal meetings, any changes to the minutes were done at the meeting. So someone said, we send minutes out, everybody okay with the minutes? Any changes, corrections? Someone says, that's not exactly what I said. Can you rephrase that to say this, so that everybody see? And I know you did electronically, which is fine.
So we all here at the same time.
At the same time, we're all here at the same time, have an opportunity for feedback. No, that's not what I said. That's not what I heard you say, whatever. But I think to the clarifications, I think those are fine, because something can get lost in the translation between in-person and remote. But if someone actually wants to make a change as opposed to a clarification, I think that has to be done at the meeting.
At the meeting. Okay. Cindy?
I have a question about transcription. So now that not only is the meeting recorded, there's a transcription, which could have errors because Google's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe, especially since I speak a lot in the meetings, and then I'm biased about when I look at the minutes about what I think I said, maybe it's better if I don't try to make any clarifications about anything I said, because I'm biased. I might say, oh, that's not what
Yeah.
So, or for anybody else who's speaking a lot. So it helps to have somebody who's a little bit more removed, who can say, well, no, this is what it says in the meeting recording. So that is what you said.
So is there a way for the secretary, how would she get that transcription?
I think a city employee.
She already knows, I think.
Oh, there she goes.
Yeah, sorry, I think Cindy or no, somebody. There's somebody who can set that. So I have, oh God, Google me. There's somebody who at town hall that can be done, and it's connected to the recording. And I found that last night, and I was going to pursue that, especially since now we've got a professional staff member doing this recording. Is that correct?
They set it up.
That's
Yes,
correct, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw that before. I forget who sent it to me before. I think Cindy started it and I saw it, but we were having so many problems with the remote recording, with the technicalities, that I just, but yeah, wanted to bring it up. Cindy, I think that would be helpful, because we've had this before and I've let them go a few times. There was once when I was in person and you said, you apparently actually, if somebody just listened to what you said something about the safety or the mold of downstairs. And so I accepted the correction, but it kind of, For years on various meetings, it kind of, I was like, this isn't what she said, but maybe everybody else understood it. So that's the bit that I think having this conversation would be useful, along with being able,
So do we have minutes we can approve?
Doesn't sound like it, no.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
So,
yes.
so is the conclusion that Louise will resubmit the minutes, and if anybody has any changes to make at the March meeting, bring your list of changes, including me.
Substantive changes, right?
Right.
As opposed to clarifications.
Right.
Okay. Do we need, is this something we need a motion and a vote on? Or?
No, there's
I just
no minute.
wanted to say very quickly, please, if they're substantive, because it is helpful. If I've spelled somebody's wrong name or something like that, if somebody just, emails me, saves time here.
Is that okay for you to get, like, if you spell Cindy, Sindy, and I send you that note? Is
Yeah,
that-
that's fine.
that's okay.
I do know a Cindy with an, leave it. Yes, if I still, by all
No.
means.
Joe, under that, minutes to approve on your agenda, in the minutes, Cindy, Louise would just say, no minutes to approve. So they would get approved to Cindy's point.
At the
We'd
next
approve
meeting.
2 sets of minutes at the next meeting.
Okay,
Absolutely. Yeah, more than 1 minute. Sorry. And please do the roll call.
okay, let's
I'm shutting up now.
start with Kathy.
Kathy Schweitzer, here. Eileen Myers.
Joe, Tom Brown,
Pat Ruff. Chuck Connor with an ER.
no, just board
Just board
members.
members.
Let's start with
Just board members.
Cindy. You're here.
Am I a board member?
You're part of the,
Yeah, you're part of this group. So. Joe Banus.
Technically not. a board
Crystal
member.
Cortezos.
Okay, and
the director.
Stan.
we have Stan and Louise.
Okay, I'm going to just ask after quickly because I couldn't. Tom, yeah. Pat, Bow, and Crystal.
Yes.
Everybody's here.
Okay, simple. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. Okay, so that's in abeyance. Okay. Next thing is public speak. Okay. After our last meeting, it occurred to me that perhaps we need some ground rules in terms of how we run public speak would be helpful. And it just so happens that for those of you who were able to attend this Mass Municipal Association, the webinar, where a number of officials from throughout the state talked about some of the issues, the town of Deerfield apparently has a pretty elaborate public policy about how they run public speak, and included in that are procedures. And I thought that was a good idea, but we don't need 5 pages or something like that. So just really quick, what I did is I got a 1-page, pretty much a summary of how I'd like to run public speak. And so if you can bear with me for a couple of minutes, I can read this. And Louise, I will send you a copy of this after the meeting, probably this afternoon. Okay. So these are what I call interim public speak procedures for ECOA board meetings or public speak rules. Public speak will occur at the beginning of each meeting. It doesn't have to be number 1 or 2. Toward the beginning. The period for public speak will be held for 10 minutes. Our meetings are 60 minutes, and I didn't want to take up that much time, when we've got other stuff that we have to do. Okay. Topic comment will be limited to those germane to the ECOA. These decisions will be at the sole discretion of the chair or designee. Okay, so if you want to protest the war or something like that, this is probably not the meeting for public speak. Okay, speakers, and for you guys who are planning to be speakers, please take note here. Speakers will be allowed up to 2 minutes to present their comments. So 10 minutes, do the math. 2 minutes, speakers cannot yield back their unused time to other persons. So you got 2 minutes, and if you use less, then you can't say, I yield back, to my colleague here. You aren't going to do that. The chair or someone designated by the chair will time each comment. At the end of the 2 minute period, the timekeeper will announce time. That's what the iPhones are for. So we will, you will be deep, at the end of your 2 minutes, but you will get the full 2 minutes. Okay. Each speaker will identify themselves, including their name, address, including the city of residence, and if representing a group, the name of that group. All remarks will be addressed to the presiding chair or designee of the meeting. Speakers are to direct their comments only to the chair or the chair's designee. So public speak, it's a one-way thing from you guys, the public, to me, the chair, or whoever the designee is. Okay, we can't be running around all over the place. Okay. Okay, I shouldn't have to say this, but I'll say it. Board members shall refrain from interrupting speakers or commenting on speakers' comments. Okay, you just take the stuff in. Once we get into a dialogue, then it's an agenda thing, an item that's not on the agenda. So it's a one-way flow of information from the public to us. Okay, we'll let that one go. Speakers, the last thing, speakers who require a reasonable accommodation to speak due to disability. Okay, let's say somebody's got a speech impediment or something, should contact the chair at least 48 hours prior to the meeting to arrange for a reasonable accommodation. Okay, so, we want to make this a friendly environment for everybody to comment. Okay, and so really the goals behind this, it's to provide the board meeting attendees a forum to share information with the board while ensuring the board's ability to conduct business in an orderly manner. Okay. All right. Questions?
Comments, questions. I did learn something from that webinar, which is because even on other committees I've been on, there's a temptation to engage in a conversation, and it can actually be in violation of public meeting law because that item was not on the agenda, which would have allowed other people to potentially come in and want to speak to that item. But the only other tweak, I think, Joe, is if someone's going to speak to an item that is pertinent to the COA, it's also an item that is not on the agenda. Because if it's on,
that's correct.
And I'm not sure that said that anywhere.
They didn't, but that's a clarification I need to make in here.
Right. If it's on the agenda, don't be talking about it because we're going to get there. And we might answer your question. And if there's another question from the public, they could bring it up at a subsequent public speak. But we don't have public hearings like other municipal bodies do.
So for instance, if somebody, like these items are on our agenda, just looking down this thing, and if we get to the acceptance of the financial report, let's pick on that for a second, and somebody from the public has come in to sit on the meeting, once we do our round and around, can the public then ask a question about whatever was on related to that financial report?
In our experience on the school building committee, that was the discretion of the chair. So if somebody said, I can ask a question about the financials, we could allow that to happen. It's an item that's on the agenda.
If it's a clarification,
correct.
If they say, okay, you've answered my question, now let me go through my big speech.
Right.
No, that ain't gonna fly.
Okay. That makes sense. I just want people to understand that.
Yeah.
If it's on the agenda, you may have a chance, if you're part of the public, you may have a chance to give input.
Right.
That's right, but.
Yeah.
But your point's well
Yeah.
taken, hold off and
We might answer your
we
question.
may answer your question at some point.
Yeah.
Okay,
Jody gets me answer.
yes,
So
Kathy.
it's real quick, as I was listening to the various towns respond on the webinar, it came to mind, does the city of Easthampton have a general public speak policy? Because I would imagine other committees.
We're not aware of it, and I told Joe that I would offer to show this to the mayor and say, you might want to think about a municipal
Yes,
policy,
very good.
because it's all over the place. You go to the
Yeah.
planning board, it's different than the zoning board, different than
City council.
city council.
Yeah.
They're all different, so it might want to be a uniform municipal policy, so.
My thoughts.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So if, during public speak, something comes up that is not on the agenda, but we may want to discuss it further in the next meeting, then can we put it on the agenda and that individual, would be included, or how would that go? Say, for instance,
Mhm.
they brought up, mold mitigation in the senior center. Okay, and it's not on the agenda, but we want to discuss it further. And we would like to include, their information. How do you go about that? You
Well, I
just
mean,
make
I
it
think-
a-
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But I would think so if you hear something the public says, they have a question on the snow shoveling, the mold, the color of the walls that they're painting next week. They're not, but if they were, you as the board member could say, I'd like to act, not during this time period, but after you can submit to the council or the president. I'd like to put this on the agenda to have a discussion about this.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to email the public and tell them, let me rephrase that. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to personally invite that person, but it'll be on the agenda. They'll find out, like
Right.
everyone else finds out what's on the agenda in advance.
Uh-huh.
And then they could come in, and then at that point, during our discussion, you could say, in theory, I would imagine, this member of the public brought this to my attention. This is the information I got from that person, and how would we follow up with that, right?
Because that's
Whereas you do that.
the whole purpose of the public speak is for the public.
Right.
To communicate to us, for us to gather
Correct.
information from them.
We can talk about that new business for agenda items for next week.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is what you do. Ahead of time, you say, is there anything you'd like to add to the agenda?
Yeah, and I haven't been explicit about it as perhaps I should
Yeah,
have
but
been.
now, I think it sounds good.
Okay, other comments? Cindy?
If somebody raises something at public speak that's within the express purview of the Council on Aging as a department to immediately address, and it's not an advisory board issue, I'm here listening, so I can take that back. So if somebody
Yeah.
says, I got injured on your van and there's something sharp, I can go and try to fix that,
Yeah.
and the board doesn't have to take that out.
Right, right.
Unless the Council on Aging is being negligent and the board wants to discuss that. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay. Good. All right, are you folks ready to participate?
Would you like to open the meeting to public speak?
Yes, I think it's
Anyone here for public speak?
time to give it a go.
Following your regulations, Mary Morris,
So you're going first?
Yeah.
All right,
Mary Morris,
excuse me.
8 Treehouse Circle, number 2,
Okay,
East
Okay.
Hampton.
hang on, Mary.
You missed it.
Louise, are you able to copy this, or you'll be able to copy this information?
I think so, but quite honestly, if you're talking about Mary, I don't propose to put somebody's home address just because they reside it. I propose to only include their city of residence in the minutes.
That's fine. All right. Mary, are you ready?
I'm ready. I am a member of the Friends
All
and the
right.
treasurer.
Are we
I-
ready to go? I'm just gonna say go and,
All right, well, this is all clarification.
oh, wait. Right, go.
Okay. Clarification, does our 2 minutes start after we identify ourselves?
Yes.
Okay. Second of all, I like your idea, and I think it should be publicized. Maybe we can publicize it at the COA and also on the city webpage of the 48 hours notice for an accommodation. You know, there might be other people who want to come to public speak and don't realize that we can't accommodate. And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. What's our time?
35 seconds.
Without my name.
See, Mary, you can be succinct and to the point, when you need to be.
That's right.
Okay, who is our next, candidate?
Sandy Eddy, I'm gonna pass.
Sandy's gonna pass.
Leslie Button, 5 Fox Run, Easthampton. My only comment is I'm shocked the city doesn't have a public speak policy, so thank you. That's
Okay,
it.
9 seconds.
gosh. Yes,
Just to clarify, we're assuming because we see so many different meetings hold it so many different ways that there's not a uniform policy. Maybe there is and no one's adhering to it, but I'll find that out when I have a chance to speak with the mayor.
yeah,
But I know from going to multiple
Yeah.
meetings, they are not the same.
understand. Okay. All right, moving on to item 4, acceptance of the COA financial report and form update. Cindy, floor is yours.
In record time, I will say that there is no financial update because you had a substantial financial update last month. And I would propose that we do a financial update quarterly hereafter, unless there's an issue that I need advisory look-see at on, in the interim. So I wanted to ask the board what you think of that before I can just speak to one small item.
Sure, I have a couple of things about that. I think doing it quarterly is fine. If something popped up though, and suddenly you realize that one of your accounts is like, in the red or something like that, or you need to shift money around or something of a exigent circumstance like that, then you could probably bring it to the board. But otherwise, quarterly is fine.
Yeah.
Does that work?
I would agree. Yeah. unless there's
We don't
something
even get the documents from the auditor's office more than quarterly. So,
Makes sense.
I think, Cindy, to Joe's point, what we used to look at was simply, are we on track based on where we are towards our fiscal year? So this is February. There's only,
Obligation and disbursement rates.
there's only 4 more months left. Did I do that right? 4 more months left in the fiscal year. If you were running low and you weren't going to make it, those are the kinds of things the board wanted to be updated on. That was all. But if quarterly is fine.
Just
okay.
don't surprise us with bad news.
Well, I was almost wondering if you could build in a trigger to that, and I don't know what the number is but if you're running $5,000 low in one account, or that's a big number, but where we should probably know before the quarter.
Or some percentage. So right now you should be some approaching 75% expenditure, roughly. If you were all of a sudden at 90% in February expenditure,
And
that'd
it's
be a
not
red
time for
flag.
the quarterly update. We
Right,
should get the updated.
Right.
To clarify, the only account that has those percentages is the city appropriations. City appropriations only pays for salary.
Oh.
Well, next year, we're getting office supplies back from central purchasing, but basically, it just pays for salary,
Okay.
which the auditor and I are keeping an eye on. So that's the revolving accounts. There's no similar trigger.
Okay.
But there could be another trigger.
You ever I mean, you've only been here over a year, just 1 year. I mean, have you ever seen a situation where at the end of the year, you still have money left over?
In the city appropriations?
Yes.
Yes, because of the slowness, the lag in hiring and
yeah.
the transitions of
Yeah.
people coming and going. And
Coming and
so
going,
last
yep.
year, as you who are new don't know, but you who are not new do know, there was money that went to free cash that I did attempt to have reallocated, but we weren't the only department. There were multiple departments where it went to free cash.
Okay. And presumably if we get to the end of May and you're at the bottom of the barrel, then, you may get some free cash from somebody, some other department.
That wouldn't happen. What would happen is if we overspent, and again, because this is just salary.
Right.
So if it looked like we were trending towards overspending because we maybe hired somebody at a higher step, we would have then talked with the mayor about going for an appropriation to
That's all.
cover that.
Process,
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Corey's.
Okay.
Okay, so the one thing,
No, I was gonna make a motion, but I'll wait till you're done.
so the other thing, so the thing I could call your attention to is that I recently learned that the formula grant that we received from the state Executive Office of Elder Affairs, $12 per senior, which I told you last time, increased for fiscal year 23, the money that we just received in January. It increased because they were using the 2020 census numbers finally instead of 2010.
Mhm.
It's a 10-year grant, as I've explained to some of you before, so that every year you're not obligated to spend down that fiscal year's money. And what we've learned from touring different senior centers and speaking with different directors is that it's really not wise to spend that money down every year unless you absolutely had to. We don't have to. The sacrifice or the benefit would be tons more programs maybe, or equipment, supplies. Mostly it's used for vendors and then it's also used for salary. So we have a situation in which, because of the pandemic, we didn't spend all of FY22 and we finished out the year with something like $13,000 left from that $40,000+. And then we got our $60-something thousand for FY23. And of course, that was a surprise. We thought we were going to get 40 again. And I budgeted to spend the whole of FY23 because we have some bigger expenses this year. And then the funds that were, quote, left from FY22, which is just a mental exercise, we are spending some of that. We don't have to. It's a good thing to save it because let's say something suddenly is significantly more expensive, like all of the performers and the classes we get that are really, we're paying under market, say they all raise their prices, or say food prices go way up, so the refreshments we buy, it's good really to save some of it and not budget it all the way. So that was a change in my thinking. Then the other thing is that just to keep in mind, the more activities we schedule, say we went to the maximum that we could absolutely do, the more pressure it puts on the building and the staff, because for every activity we perform, we have to fold up the furniture, fold up the chairs, move everything. There isn't enough parking. So there's more of a philosophical question, which is, should we just pack it to the gills and knowing it will be difficult, or should we work with what we have? There's two different ways to go about that. And I'm still learning what would be the best thing to do. So just to say, expect that at the end of the year, we won't have spent the full formula grant.
Okay. Anything else? Eileen, you were gonna.
Yeah, I make a motion that we change it to the quarterly.
Okay,
Second.
I'm not sure if we need a motion, but yeah, that's fine. Tom, can you advise us on this?
Oh, no, I think you can make a motion on anything you want, absolutely.
All right,
I need it or not,
all
sure.
right,
We get an umbrella.
Kathy, you seconded Eileen's motion?
Yes.
Okay, let's bring it to a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand.
I,
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Unanimous, okay. Item 5, Highland Valley Report. Pat, tell us.
things are plugging along over there, just like they are over here. They're in the process like everybody else of budget times and they're continuing to see the same struggles that I think a lot of the other COAs see in the area.
Yeah.
So it's moving along.
Okay, good. All right, item 6, Director's Report.
Okay. I'm very excited to announce that we have finally a delivery date for the new furniture that we purchased through an earmark that Representative Dan Carey advocated for the COA. That was $30,000. We're also spending some money from the formula grant and from our gift account so that we could purchase new chairs and people wouldn't have to sit on metal folding chairs, new tables that people, even people who have some limited mobility can move around and would be nicer than plastic, and new office furniture. And that furniture is going to require us to move out a lot of furniture and old stuff, which we started with DPW, and now we have to hire a moving company to do the rest. It's beyond what DPW is prepared to do at this time. And we will be doing this March 1st through March 8th. Also, as part of that, you'll see some changes in how we're using the space, who's where, and then IT will reconnect us. We also are going to have the need to reset our whole phone system, which is misbehaving. So from March 1st through March 8th, you'll see in the newsletter, which is coming out soon, that will be closed for certain things and open for other things. And the signage is up at the center. The other part of that is that we racked our brains after the building feasibility study that studied the building. How could we possibly get the outreach workers more privacy for confidential conversations? So what we are doing with DPW's help is we're taking the old Friends office. We moved the Friends. The Friends have no confidentiality anymore, but they do have a door that locks. And the outreach workers, the foot nurse, and the health nurse can all go into the room they were in and have some privacy. It's inhumanely hot in there, and DPW is going to help us disconnect one of the 2 huge radiators that are in there, and we'll see if that improves things. So really the only reason to meet with clients in an office that's not confidential will be if that office is full, and then the client can decide would they just rather go downstairs to the basement and shut the door if a room is available. There isn't always a room available. We also played with the idea of me giving up my private office, thinking that client confidentiality is more important, but we can't do that because supervisees really need privacy too. So those are the limitations on our move. Transportation. Oh wait, does anybody have any questions about this move first before I switch topics?
Do you think there's any help with anything?
Oh, thank you. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you,
I'm
Eileen.
happy to help.
Great. Well, I could say this also, just so people aren't surprised. So everybody knows that as of December 31st, our kitchen, we didn't renew the permit on the kitchen because together with the board and our staff, and I spoke with the mayor about this as well, we determined that it's not safe to reopen our kitchen as is, and that we weren't going to put the money into fixing it up and bringing it up to code at this time. So we are going to take some equipment out of the kitchen because the furniture we're getting, we need to be able to roll it out of the room It takes up a little bit more space to store than the old furniture with so we're taking out certain commercial equipment from the kitchen that wouldn't have passed code anyway, like stainless steel cabinets where the doors don't close all the way, and stainless steel work tables where the zinc shelves are corroded and rusty, and those will be surplused. So just in case you see the kitchen and you're worried, wow, this looks like it can never become a commercial kitchen again, we're only taking away things that really shouldn't have been in there anymore anyway. Okay. So transportation update. We have a few updates. There's so much. Our transportation program is fantastic. So many people use it. There's more demand on it. It feels like every week, in particular to go, and I'll have statistics after I do my state annual report, which I'm doing this month, that I can bring you. So more and more people want to go to the grocery store seemingly every month with us, Big Y or Big E. It's a huge demand. It's very taxing on us because we have limited slots, and people are often surprised that they can't get in, but then so many people cancel or are no-shows without enough cancellation that sometimes we have spare time on those days. So it's a little bit of an awkward thing. We think we're doing it the most efficient way we can right now, but we can explore that. Secondly, medical appointments. The need continues for medical appointments out of town, including hours of the day and then towns that we don't go to. We have a huge demand for volunteer drivers that even as we bring on new drivers, we're still not satisfying all the need. So we encourage the community to send us, recruits. We had a wonderful story where our volunteer Alice Sessions was recommended by RSVP, which we share her with the Retired Senior Volunteer Program. They recommended her for a story that NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt did. And so she was interviewed. They cut it from the nightly broadcast, but they created a long web film that I posted on Facebook for you to see. And that film was seen by somebody who decided to become a volunteer driver because of Alice's very positive experience doing it. It benefits the volunteer because they get so much out of it. And of course it benefits us because otherwise you would see it that our ride rejection list would be much longer. We're making a few changes to transportation. One is that now that we have a clerk, and we have 4 senior task work-off and standard volunteers performing transportation coordination in the afternoons, and a paid person performing it in the mornings. And then the clerk supplements. That's a lot of people. Plus, I am the de facto transportation coordinator because Easthampton, unlike the other towns, doesn't have a transportation coordinator. Now, for example, in Hadley, the transportation coordinator is also the outreach worker and is simply coordinating the volunteer rides. The Hadley has a preset run that they do on Route 9 with their van. We have customized on-demand transportation, which is much more complex. So the clerk is not the transportation coordinator, but is performing some of the functions. So the functions are not really split up. It's just many people are doing them. We're going to seek the board's advice, and we're going to discuss at some point what, after the clerk gets her feet wet in transportation, is there a more efficient way to organize this, since the transportation coordinator we had years ago was terminated? So I'm not sure we're doing it the best way, but we are serving a lot of people. Another thing that's going on with transportation is that we've been requiring masks far longer than any other area transportation service. I don't know about Riverside, but I do know PVTA doesn't require masks anymore. So after a year of it being being required, it's been required for the whole pandemic. So maybe it's been like 3 years. We're making it a mask advisory, so it'll be optional. And that'll be in our April newsletter. Didn't make it in time for the March newsletter. The other thing about transportation I want to announce is that I've negotiated that we're going to go back to doing special trips, either one full day a month or 2 half-day trips a month. The funds for that will come out of the formula grant, so that we won't be adding anything over the total of 40 hours per week that the city appropriations are currently paying for. And we've averaged under 40 hours. We almost overcorrected because we just got more efficient. We're doing the same number of rides or more. The drivers are working really hard. So some weeks we're at 40 and some weeks we're at 36, say. But not quite enough to guarantee a trip every month. So that's what we're going to do. And we're starting that now in March with some special trips.
Is the special trips, for example, like when they went down to Bright Nights?
Yes. Bright Nights was the first one that we did. Yeah. So people have been asking for social, cultural, and recreational opportunities so they can build relationships with people, get out of the house. Some people only leave the house to see their doctor, you know? So this is really what a senior center is for. That leads me to the next thing, and I can sacrifice the outreach update in favor of transportation. You can cue me if we're running out of time here.
I think we are.
Okay, so this brings me to the next topic, which is that after speaking with other councils on aging, the Mass Department of Transportation, the Massachusetts Councils on Aging, and the mayor and my staff, I'm going to initiate a new policy that we will spell out in the April newsletter, which is this. When you want transportation from the COA for regular medical care, not just a one-off, but you're going to be with us every week or twice a week for physical therapy or retina injections or something like that, or you're going to have surgery and there's pre-op, surgery, post-op, etc.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do an intake with you. You'll sit down with our outreach workers and we will assess, is there any other transportation you could use? Because people have become accustomed to using us for chemotherapy or physical therapy. It's putting a huge burden on our transportation. It's sometimes causing people to not be able to get their groceries. If that person has Mass Health will pay for your transportation and provide it, and you might just need some support from us around it. Will it be as good as our transportation? I will be so bold as to say no. You know, we provide a very customized service. People don't generally have to wait more than half an hour, 45 minutes for us to pick them up. The other thing is that we're only curb to curb. What if you're really door-through-door transportation because you've lost some mobility? We want our outreach workers to really have a conversation with you and assess that. And then the last piece is, what if you've never used our transportation before or any public transportation before and you didn't realize? You're going to be alone on the van with somebody, maybe, or you might be on the van longer than you were expecting, or if you're in a wheelchair and you're getting strapped in, the driver is going to touch you. And there's just so many things that might affect one person differently than another. So we really want to prepare people for what is our transportation like, because increasingly, the tough older New Englanders are going to be giving way to the more sensitive boomers, I think, and Gen Xers. So I just think that we should get ahead of that. That is my transportation report.
Louise had a question.
Yeah, I have a couple. The first one is, what is our current rejection rate of ride requests?
I do not know. I have the list of who has not been given a ride. What I don't know is they don't always follow up with us to tell us that they've decided they don't want to volunteer to take them, and they just go and use PVTA or Uber or get a family member to take them. And in that case, it's not a ride rejection from our side, it's a ride rejection from their side. It's a little hard to, we don't always know what happens to people, and we don't have the time to call everybody and just say, hey, whatever happened with that ride you didn't get. So I can report to you next time something like, hey, I have a list since July 1 of 30 people that we weren't able to give a ride to, but they could have just, so many things happen, like their doctor will cancel the appointment on them and then they call us right back and then we do give them a ride. That doesn't mean we cross them off the ride rejection sheet, because we did actually turn them away from that time slot.
Yeah, I follow. I'd still like, it'd be useful to see a rough one. And I guess as well, start. I mean, from an outside point of view, I've heard people not bothering or not, not counting. Like if you shake the bushes, you can find an alternative, but you just don't have that point of contact with the senior center. If you're not already an established user and you know everybody and they know you. And the second question is, you might just simply say it's too much right now, Cindy, but it is related. Can one request things like that by email and not have to play phone tag?
Could you say that question again?
Is it possible to request services like transportation would be a good example by email and not have to play phone tag with the senior center? I'm not talking about returns or not. I'm just saying that's a barrier. And it might be too much, but it just seemed that just the staff at this point.
Of all of our services, transportation would be the most not amenable to email, because people are calling constantly. So if you think that you'll get a slot out of our 7 slots at 10 a.m. on Friday to go to Big E by email, within the moment that you're thinking of writing that email, 5 people could call us and you'll miss your chance. We can't prioritize email over the calls.
Right.
Emails are perfect for, I need a ride in a month to go to the New England retina specialist. And because that's in Springfield, that's automatically a volunteer ride. We don't go to Springfield. So that's perfect. You can email coa@easthamptonma.gov, which goes to the clerk. Thank you. Yay, we have a clerk. And the clerk can say to the people who are scheduling the volunteer rides, hey, just got an email from Louise. She's going to the retina specialist in March. Could you find a volunteer to take her? Is a very different kind of ride request than in 2 days, I want to go to the grocery store. So
Sorry, Sid, if I could clarify, I'm not talking as a way to get faster. I'm just talking as a way to avoid, and I've heard this from others, so it's not just me, playing phone tag. Not everybody can answer the phone. Not everybody fits within your hours or remembers what the hours, and all those, just get it in, then don't think till a day or two later you get it. It doesn't become another not full-time, but another hassle to make a phone call that's actually answered. You can include all the details there. And anyway, that's what the question is. It's simply for, I know as the boomers come on, as you said, there are a lot of people who use email much more easily than phones. There's been a backup on hearing aids for years, whole bunch of things. I don't really want to get into it now. Just ask the question, not around simply to replace phone calls with email.
Yeah, so you and we did put the email address in the newsletter for March, now that we have this new email address, which is COA@. So really, you can communicate with us through email for anything, just knowing that, that concert may have filled up in the meantime while you're emailing. But for the paid van rides, no, you need to call. If you have hearing issues, there's assistive technology for making the phone call, and we can help set that up. if there's other issues, so we have some people who are so hard of hearing and don't have that service. We can't communicate with them at all by phone, and we take we overcorrect for that by putting them on the grocery run every week. And if they're a no-show, like, we have an arrangement, with that person. So no, for paid van transportation, you really do need to call. Yeah. And then anybody who leaves us a message from 4:00 on, I have sat at the desk enough to know those calls at 8 a.m. We go through all of those calls and return those calls. I would say it would probably take us about an hour to get through everyone's calls. So the phone tag would be a very brief period of time when it comes to transportation.
Okay, time is keeping us moving. I guess if you could spend just a couple of minutes, the old business, just update folks on where we've been lately and what we've seen.
Does somebody on the committee want to do that? I'm tired of hearing myself talk.
Oh, but you speak so well.
Thank you. I can do it if you
Tom,
want.
do you wanna?
How about we tag team it, so you jump in wherever?
That's fine.
So we've been to 4 or 5 now, I lose track. And
Yeah, maybe 6 or 7.
And I don't know what we may have updated you on last month, but I'll kind of use, I call it the Goldilocks theory, where some too big, some too small, some just right. Long Meadow, for example, with their almost totally separate gym, where they have a elevated walking track, and they have, I think, 6 indoor pickleball courts, literally as part of their senior center. There's pros and cons to that. There's public access to that after hours. And the one positive I saw to that is that it sort of feeds your seniors, because there are a lot of non-seniors, say 45, 50-year-olds in there playing pickleball, who might be your future population of your senior center.
If I recall about Long Meadow too, it's not strictly a senior center, it's more of a community center. So there are younger people and older people, and some of the seniors apparently they have 2 friends groups down there, which aren't terribly friendly to each other. And so there's a little bit of a conflict, but apparently, the one thing, sitting in the parking lot watching people go in and out, there were a lot of people who I thought were maybe, in their 50s, but basically they were going there to work out only, and just they go in and do their workouts, and they have a pretty fair gym there too.
Hadley, as you might imagine, is pretty small. I mean, their entire population in Hadley is about 6,000 people. So their senior population is much smaller than ours. The one I've found so far that is just right is Ludlow. Ludlow seems to be a perfect model that if we, maybe a few tweaks here and there, but if we were to replicate a brand new senior center and it looked like Ludlow, that'd be perfect for Easthampton. Ludlow, I think they're about 20,000 in population. So
Yeah,
they're close to
counting
us.
the jail, yeah.
They're close to us, but that seemed to be a great layout, but in all of them, Hadley, we went to Wilbraham, but they're not even under construction yet.
Right.
But and we spoke with Worthington remotely, but that each one of them that are up and running brand new, Longmeadow, Hadley, and Ludlow. I was taken aback as soon as we drove in with these 50 cars in the parking lot. And think about it, if we had a senior center that drew that kind of people today, even where would we park?
Ludlow has a big kitchen and a big room. They were serving that day 176 lunches.
Wow.
Yeah, that they were serving, and it was like Salisbury steak, right? But people were just like, the place was packed.
Those are home cooked meals that are $2 each, and 130 of the 176 stayed to play bingo.
Wow. Yeah.
And the dance, there was a dance class
Dance class, yeah.
in the middle of the day
fairly on the younger side, which was packed with, I would think, maybe like 12 or 15 couples dancing or pairs of people dancing.
Life's good and love low.
And we asked the same questions of all of them, you know, what was the site, a city-owned property? Did you have to purchase it? What was the cost, total cost? What's the square footage of the property? How was it funded? So I think over time here, we might have two more like Holyoke and Chicopee. Cindy might be able to put together sort of a spreadsheet that just puts us all on one sheet where everybody can see it. Like I just delegated that to you, Cindy.
I'll give that to Crystal. She'd be great at that.
Just a spreadsheet that puts all the facts together so everybody can see it. But, and you had thrown out at our last meeting, Cindy, a bunch of things that we need to be looking at. And some of them are things that we or a subgroup can do now, but some of them are things that you wouldn't do until you had a building committee established. So, you know, site selection might be building committee, or how it's going to be funded might be building committee, but planning and design and what was the other one?
Marketing,
yeah.
communications.
You know, some of that could be done in advance potentially.
Let me jump in here for a second. Mary's having, the Friends Group is having a meeting at some point in a couple of weeks, is it? Or something, which would be an opportunity for people like me. You know, it's not an official sanctioned thing, so, you know, it's not like we go and just sort of like keep our mouth shut and take notes, but this would be an opportunity, I think, for people like me to go as an individual and just basically talk to folks about, you know, take the opportunity to interact, you know, and have an informal dialogue as opposed to a formal.
That would be the third Thursday in April at 1 p.m. at the
The
senior
second
center.
Thursday.
Second Thursday?
Second Thursday in April at the senior center. And I forget the time we meet.
1 p.m.
And just one other thought, I was talking with Mary before the meeting, and you know, how, if we were to look at another debt exclusion, how would this be received? And in my opinion, again, keeping in mind, stealing Joe's line, this is a marathon, not a sprint. This isn't going to happen in 2023. May or may not even happen in 24. Further away we get, a year or two from the school project, the easier it might be to sell. The other selling point, I think, is going to be compared to what it costs the average taxpayer for the school. This is going to be minuscule. And I say minuscule, it might still hurt some folks, but if the average increase in taxes for the school was $700 a year, this could be $100 a year. So it's a little more palatable, I think, especially as we get further away from the last
the
increase.
date of the school. Yeah. Okay.
Most projects, Joe, I think, and Cindy, were between $15 and $20 million was the total all-in cost.
Or in today's dollars, it would be like maybe it was originally 12 million or 10 million. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I wanted to make sure that we covered that subject, because that's the part of the icing on the cake.
Unmuted, was he? Did he have a question?
I don't know.
Okay, I had a meeting.
Stan, you okay?
Stan,
Wait up.
just those. Yeah, little. Any questions, Stan? No. All right. Just checking.
All right. We went over a little bit. I apologize for that, but thanks very much for your time. And as always, if you have any thoughts for items, for the agenda items for the next meeting, please shoot me an email or send me an email or shoot me the email. I don't want all the email to go to Cindy. You know?
Joe, one last thing. If you finalize that public speak policy, could you email it to all of us?
I will be, I gotta do some editing on that.
Yes, that's what I meant by finalizing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say clean it up, but just finalize.
All right, we're good. Do we have any further, items to discuss? All right, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Kathy, all right, Kat, seconds. All those in favor? Aye. All right,
Thank you
thank you very much,
Thank you.
folks. Have a
Thank
good
you.
week and we'll see you later.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.